Hey folks, I'm Saeed, the Codogrammer, and in this video, we're going to look at how to create Kotlin class instances. Now, before we continue, there is a distinction between Kotlin classes and Kotlin files. It is subtle, and I have already discussed it in this previous video at these timestamps. However, there's not much point repeating myself, so I'm just going to play a small clip from that video now, and then we'll resume. Okay, and let's create a new Kotlin class. So we'll call that a class, and you'll notice that here there's no file extension, but up here you can see the .kt extension. Now, just to make the distinction clear, we're going to create a new Kotlin file, call that a file, and just select the file option there. Okay, now if you notice, this has the .kt extension, and this is what we call a file, and this is what we call a class. But you'll soon realize that on the file system, they've both got .kt extensions. They're the same from the file system perspective. So what makes it a class and what makes this a file? Well, if you look in here, you've got a class declaration of a class. And if you look here, you've got no declaration. So if we create a declaration here with the same name as the file, you can see that you lose the .kt extension here, and it gives it the class symbol. And if we delete that, again, it goes back to being a file.kt. So that's the first thing. So in that sense, they're kind of interchangeable. So now they're both classes. So if we go back to the class, if I now declare a function here called ABC, I now have a function as well as a class, and immediately turns into a .kt file. In other words, a Kotlin file rather than a Kotlin class. So in reality, the distinction is that if you have one class with the name matching the file name, then it's treated as a class. Otherwise, it's treated as a Kotlin file. All right, so that was about how to create classes, and classes is what we're interested in, not files. So it might be outside the scope of this video to talk about why we would even want to do this. I mean, what is really the point of classes exactly? Well, all I'll say for now is that they are very useful for modeling things. For example, if you're building a HR system, you'd likely model an employee with something like an employee class. You would likely model an employer, the company, with something like a company class. Then you can create instances from these classes and move them around your application, editing them, storing them, sorting them, etc. So I think you get the idea. Let me know if you want me to make a video where I talk more about that. But for now, let's get back to creating instances of classes. By the way, if you want to stay up to date with the latest Kotlin tutorials and news, then don't forget to subscribe. And for more general tech content, check out the main channel, which I'll link to in the description below. All right, where were we? Okay, so here we are in IntelliJ with our trusty Kotlin project, and we've got a KT file here with some notes and some demo code. So first of all, let's have a look at a couple of classes. So first of all, we've got the car class and we've got the house class. Now the house class doesn't take any parameters, it's just a house. It's got a function to print its address, which is fixed in this case, so not very useful, but it's just a nice simple class for demo purposes. And we've got another class here called the car class. Now the car class has two parameters, unlike the house class. One is convertible, whether it's convertible or not, and so that's a Boolean, which is true or false. The other one is registration, which is a string, which is the registration plate number of the car. It also has one function just that prints out driving. Okay, so let's jump back to our Kotlin file. Now, when we want to create a new instance, that means that we've got a house template, which is a class. You can think of it like a template. When we want to create an actual instance of a house, we can do that by saying val house equals house. Now, if you're coming from a Java background, you would normally type the word new there. We don't need to do that in Kotlin, so that's just a little bit more concise. And if you notice that in these brackets here, we haven't passed in any parameters. The reason why we haven't done that is because the house class doesn't declare any parameters, okay? Now let's jump back here. Now if we want to create an instance of the car class, now that means we want to create an actual car from the car class definition. And we have to set parameters in this case. So we want to say that it is a convertible and the registration plate is specified here. Okay, so now if we try and use our instances, we can just run this and see what that does. And you can see that in the case of the house, it's calling the print address function prints the house address, and in the car.drive function, it just prints out the word driving. Okay, so you can see that on those instances, you can call those functions. Now, the other thing is that from one class definition, in this case, car, you can create any number of instances. So we've got a car2, which is convertible and has this registration plate. We've got a car3, which is not convertible, has a different registration, etc., etc. Okay, so you can just specify different values. You can even have the same values and declare separate instances. All right, so just to repeat, from one class definition, you can create multiple instances. And again, you can think of the class definition as a kind of a template. So car, a template of a car, and the instances as actual real world cars. So car2 could be your car, car3 could be my car. Now, the next thing to point out is that you can declare the type. So if you look here, all of these val types, we call these the reference type. We haven't actually said what this variable is, what the type is. You only find out what the type is when you look across the equal symbol. The actual reference type here, which is this, you can't really tell what the type is. Is it a string? Is it an int? You only know when you look over here. Now, if you want to specify the type, you can actually do that with colon, space, and then the type, but it's completely unnecessary. So I personally wouldn't bother. Okay, so that pretty much wraps up the basics of instance creation from a class. If you are interested in learning more about object orientation or this style of programming where you create classes and how you might model your domains or all of that kind of stuff, feel free to let me know in the comments below. And of course, I hope that was useful. Drop me a comment in the comment section below if you have any feedback. And of course, don't forget to subscribe. Thank you for watching.